Hi there, tonight we're stepping back in time, not to a grand pharaoh's tomb or a sprawling battlefield, but into the surprisingly vibrant and often misunderstood world of women in ancient Egypt. Imagine the warm desert air on your skin, the scent of baking bread wafting from a nearby oven, and the distant murmur of life along the Nile. You're not a queen. Probably not a priestess, just an ordinary woman going about her day. And here's the reality check. You probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes without some serious local knowledge, which we're about to give you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to post your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to see where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself stirring awake in a modest mud brick home, the early morning light filtering through a small window. Your bed is a simple mat, perhaps on a raised platform, and the sounds of a bustling household are already beginning. You hear the clatter of pottery, the soft murmur of voices, and perhaps the distant lowing of cattle. This isn't the ancient world you might have pictured from Hollywood movies, filled only with epic battles and gold-laden sarcophagi. This is the everyday, the domestic, the profoundly human. And as a woman in this society, you're about to discover some fascinating truths that might just flip your preconceived notions upside down. One mainstream historical fact that often surprises people is just how advanced the legal rights of women were in ancient Egypt compared to almost any other civilization of that era. Forget the restrictive, oppressive roles women were forced into in, say, ancient Greece or Rome. Here, in the land of pharaohs, you, as a woman, hold a remarkably strong position in the eyes of the law. This isn't just about queens. This applies to common women like you. You can own property, buy and sell goods, and even bring lawsuits to court. It's almost as if they had a legal system ahead of its time, though historians still argue whether these written laws were always perfectly applied in every remote village, or just in the major centers like Thebes and Memphis. Here's a quirky tidbit to chew on while you're thinking about those legal rights. Consider the contracts. Ancient Egyptian marriage contracts, for instance, weren't just about love and devotion, though those were certainly hoped for. They often detailed financial agreements and property divisions, ensuring both parties, especially the woman, were protected in case of divorce. It's less for better or for worse, and more for better or for a clear financial settlement. It makes you wonder if modern prenups are just a recycled idea, doesn't it? You might assume that as a woman, your life would be entirely circumscribed by the four walls of your home. And while domestic duties are certainly a core part of your day, you quickly realize that your reach extends far beyond. You're not just a passive figure. You're an active participant in the economic and legal life of your community. Imagine, for a moment, that you decide to sell some surplus grain from your family's harvest. You can legally own that grain, negotiate the price, and pocket the earnings. No husband or father needs to sign off on it for you. This level of autonomy for women was almost unheard of elsewhere in the ancient world, making ancient Egypt a true anomaly. It wasn't perfect, of course. No society ever is. But it certainly offered opportunities and freedoms that were, quite frankly, revolutionary for its time. You roll out of your mat, the coolness of the packed earth floor, a brief respite from the morning warmth already building outside. As you begin your day, perhaps by fetching water from the communal well or grinding grain for the morning meal. A profound truth settles in. Your legal equality in ancient Egypt isn't just some lofty ideal for the elite. It's a practical, everyday reality woven into the fabric of society. You, as a woman, possess the right to draw up legal documents, to inherit property, and even to represent yourself in court. This isn't a privilege for a select few. It's a right afforded to all freeborn women. Imagine the astonishment of a woman from Mesopotamia or Greece, where such rights were virtually unheard of. If she were to observe your daily life, she'd probably think you were some kind of sorceress, wouldn't she? Consider a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian women were not only able to own and inherit property, but they could also manage it independently. This meant that if your father passed away, leaving you a field of emmer wheat, you wouldn't need a male guardian to oversee its cultivation or sale. You could manage the harvest, negotiate with buyers, and even hire workers yourself. This level of economic independence gave women a significant degree of control over their own lives and destinies. Historians still argue whether this legal right translated into widespread actual practice for all women, or if social pressures often led them to defer to male relatives, even when legally empowered. Here's a quirky tidbit. We have surviving legal documents, sometimes on papyrus, sometimes inscribed on astraca, pottery shards used for notes, that record women entering into contracts. Some of these contracts detail the sale of donkeys, the lease of land, or even agreements for professional services. It's mind-boggling to think that thousands of years ago, a woman like you could sign a binding document for a few bushels of barley without requiring a male cosigner. It makes you wonder if our modern bureaucracy, with all its forms and signatures, really is all that new. Perhaps we just swapped papyrus for pixels. The concept of divorce is another area where your rights as an ancient Egyptian woman truly shine. Unlike many other ancient societies where divorce was often a complex, stigmatizing, and male-initiated process, here you can initiate a divorce yourself. And what's more, you're not necessarily shamed for it. The legal system ensured that if a divorce occurred, the woman was financially protected. She would often receive back her dowry, plus a share of the communal property acquired during the marriage. This isn't just about escaping an unhappy union. It's about ensuring your economic stability after separation. It highlights a society that, in some fundamental ways, valued women's autonomy and well-being more than others of its time. You might be thinking, but surely there were limitations. And yes, of course, no society is a utopia. While you are legally equal in many respects, certain social conventions still exist. Men generally hold the most visible positions of power, like pharaoh or high officials. But your personal legal standing, your ability to conduct business, and your freedom to control your own property and even your marital status are remarkably robust. You are far from being mere chattel, a possession to be bought and sold. You are a legal individual, capable of making your own choices within the framework of your society. This quiet, revolutionary freedom is a cornerstone of your daily existence here in ancient Egypt. As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the courtyard, you turn your attention to the family's assets. A mainstream historical fact that underscores your independence is your unrestricted right to own and dispose of property. This isn't just about the pots and pans in your kitchen. It extends to land, livestock, slaves, and even the produce of your own labor. If you've woven a particularly fine piece of linen, it's yours to sell or keep. If your family owns a small plot of land by the Nile, you have as much right to inherit and manage it as your brother does. Historians still argue whether this legal right was universally exercised by all women, or if social norms sometimes encouraged women to delegate property management to male relatives, even when not legally required. Here's a quirky tidbit. We have records of women participating in property disputes, sometimes even against their own male relatives, and winning. Imagine the drama of a family squabble over a few acres of fertile land, with you, a woman, standing before a tribunal, presenting your case with confidence, and walking away victorious. It's a far cry from the image of the demure, voiceless woman often portrayed in other ancient contexts. You might even hear tales of women who lent money with interest to men, effectively acting as private bankers. Talk about turning the tables. You might be thinking, but what about the man of the house? While men were generally the heads of households and held the most prominent public roles, your ownership of property wasn't contingent on their approval. You could buy, sell, and bequeath your assets without needing your husband's signature or permission. This is a crucial distinction from many other ancient societies where a woman's property was often subsumed by her husband's upon marriage. Here, your property remains yours. It's a bit like having your own separate bank account, even if you share a joint one for household expenses. The concept of looms isn't just about a tool for weaving. It's symbolic of your economic power. Many households, especially those not engaged directly in agriculture, would have looms, and it's often the women who are the master weavers, producing textiles for the family's use or for sale. The cloth you weave, the baskets you braid, the pottery you shape, these are all tangible assets that contribute directly to your family's wealth and, by extension, your own personal standing. You're not just a consumer, you're a producer, and your skills have real economic value. Imagine a scene. You're at the local market, perhaps selling some surplus vegetables from your garden, or a beautifully woven basket. You haggle over prices, negotiate terms, and count your copper deben, a unit of weight used for valuing goods. No one questions your right to be there, to conduct business, or to keep the profits. This active participation in the economy is a fundamental aspect of your life. It means you have a voice, a presence, and a tangible impact on the financial well-being of your family and community. This isn't some abstract legal theory. It's the lived reality of your daily existence, giving you a degree of agency that would be the envy of many women in other ancient lands. The sun is now firmly in the sky, warming the mud bricks of your home, and the aroma of fermenting grains might be wafting from a corner of the courtyard. This brings us to a delicious mainstream historical fact. Women in ancient Egypt were heavily involved in the production of food and beverages, most notably bread and beer, which were staples of the Egyptian diet. You might find yourself knee-deep in a batch of dough, kneading it rhythmically, or perhaps tending to the brewing vats. It's an essential role, far from simply being a domestic chore. It's a vital economic contribution to your household and, often, to the broader community. Historians still argue about the precise division of labor between men and women in large-scale bakeries and breweries, but it's clear that women's hands were fundamental. Here's a quirky tidbit. Ancient Egyptian beer wasn't exactly your modern-day pint. It was thick, nutritious, and often unfiltered, more like a liquid bread. It was so integral to the diet that it was even given to children. Imagine explaining that to a modern parent. Don't worry, darling, It's just a little fermented gruel. For energy, you, as a woman, would be an expert in this vital production, ensuring your family had enough sustenance. It's a bit like being the chief nutritionist and beverage director all rolled into one. Except with fewer glowing reviews on Yelp, your day might begin as a brewer, carefully monitoring the fermentation process, adding dates or honey for flavor, and ensuring the quality of the brew. Or perhaps you are a baker, shaping loaves from coarse grain, perhaps adding a touch of fat or fruit for a special treat. These aren't just household tasks. For many women, they are occupations. You might be baking extra loaves to sell at the market, or brewing surplus beer for a neighbor's feast. Your skills in these areas translate directly into economic value. Don't think about the sheer physical effort involved. Grinding grain by hand, especially, is an incredibly laborious task, often performed by women. You'd be leaning over a saddle, quone, rubbing a smaller stone back and forth, reducing tough kernels into flour. It's a rhythmic, almost meditative process, but undoubtedly tiring. Yet, from that effort comes the very staff of life. This direct connection to the production of essential goods gives you a tangible sense of purpose and contribution. Beyond brewing and baking, you might also be involved in other aspects of food preparation and preservation. Perhaps you're curing fish from the Nile, drying dates in the sun, or pressing olives for oil. These skills are passed down through generations, making you a repository of vital knowledge that keeps your family and community thriving. It's a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of Egyptian women that they turned simple raw materials into sustenance, not just surviving, but often flourishing. You are not merely a consumer of goods. You are a skilled artisan, a vital link in the food chain of ancient Egypt. Your hands, dusted with flour or sticky with fermenting yeast, are literally building blocks of this civilization. As the morning continues to unfold, you might find yourself not just producing goods for your household, but actively engaging in trade. This leads us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian women had the right, and often the opportunity, to engage in business ventures, manage their own finances, and participate in commercial transactions. This wasn't limited to selling a few extra loaves of bread at the local market. Some women managed complex enterprises, demonstrating their acumen as merchants and managers. Historians still argue about how widespread, large-scale female-led businesses were, but the legal framework certainly allowed for it. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine you're at the bustling marketplace, negotiating with a trader over a shipment of fine linen. You're not just a passive buyer. You're a shrewd negotiator, perhaps even a wholesale merchant. We have evidence of women trading in luxury goods, like perfumes or jewelry, and managing their accounts with careful precision. It's a bit like being a CEO in a toga, haggling over supply chains, only instead of a spreadsheet, you're using clay tablets and your sharp wit. You might even hear tales of women owning fleets of boats for transport on the Nile, though that's certainly not an everyday occurrence for most. You might find yourself overseeing a small workshop, perhaps one that produces textiles or pottery. As a manager, you would be responsible for acquiring raw materials, supervising workers who could be men or women, and ensuring the quality of the finished products. Then comes the critical part, selling those goods. You would be a merchant, negotiating prices, dealing with customers, and keeping meticulous records of your transactions. This requires not just skill in your craft, but a keen business sense. Think about the confidence required to operate in such a public and competitive sphere. You're engaging with different people, assessing risks, and making decisions that directly impact your economic well-being. This isn't a world where women are confined to the domestic sphere with no say in financial matters. On the contrary, your ability to manage your own finances is a cornerstone of your independence. You decide how your money is spent, saved, or invested. If you earn a profit from selling your goods, that profit is yours to control. Perhaps you decide to invest in a new venture, like buying a few more chickens to increase egg production or acquiring better quality flax for your weaving business. Your decisions directly influence your livelihood and your family's prosperity. This economic agency gives you significant power within your household and community. You are not dependent on a male relative to make all your financial decisions. You are a proactive and capable economic agent. It's truly remarkable how, thousands of years before the modern concept of women in business, ancient Egyptian women were already carving out significant roles for themselves in the economic landscape. This aspect of your life here is a powerful testament to the unique opportunities afforded to you as a woman in this ancient civilization. As the sun reaches its zenith, casting a warm glow through the open doorways, your attention shifts back to the heart of your world, the home. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. While ancient Egyptian women had remarkable legal and economic freedoms, their primary societal role was often centered around household management and family well-being. This wasn't seen as a lesser role, but rather a complex and respected endeavor that underpinned the entire fabric of society. Historians still argue whether this emphasis on domesticity limited women's broader societal ambitions, or if it was simply a cultural norm that coexisted with their other freedoms. Here's a quirky tidbit: the ancient Egyptian word for housewife, nebet-per, literally translates to mistress of the house. It wasn't a demeaning term, but one that conferred status and authority within the domestic sphere. Imagine being called the mistress of your domain, even if that domain is a simple mud brick dwelling. It's a bit like being the benevolent dictator of your own small kingdom, where your word is law regarding everything from meal times to child discipline. You might even hear jokes about how the true power in Egypt resides not with the pharaoh, but with the nebet-per who keeps his house in order. Your duties as a household manager are incredibly diverse and demanding. You are the chief organizer, ensuring that daily life runs smoothly. This involves everything from overseeing the preparation of meals, remember that thick, nutritious beer you brewed, to managing the household's resources. You're responsible for storing grain, managing water supplies, and perhaps even tending to a small garden plot outside your home, where you might grow herbs or vegetables. Think about the sheer logistics involved. You're essentially running a small, self-sufficient unit. You allocate tasks to any servants or younger family members, perhaps teaching a daughter how to grind grain or spin flax. You make decisions about what to purchase at the market and what can be made or grown at home. This isn't just about cleaning and cooking. It's about strategic planning and resource management, skills that would be valued in any modern corporation. Beyond the practicalities, you also play a crucial role in maintaining the emotional and social well-being of your family. You are the nurturer, the educator, and often the moral compass for your children. You instill values, teach traditions, and prepare them for their own adult lives. The stability and prosperity of the family unit rest heavily on your shoulders. It's a role that demands intelligence, resilience, and boundless energy. While your hands might be busy with domestic tasks, your mind is constantly active, planning, organizing, and ensuring the smooth operation of your home. The respect accorded to the mistress of the house underscores the profound importance of this role in ancient Egyptian society. It's a testament to the fact that power and influence aren't always found in grand public offices, but often in the quiet, consistent work of creating and maintaining a thriving home. As your day progresses, perhaps as you instruct a younger daughter in the art of weaving or watch your son playing with a wooden toy, the profound significance of motherhood in ancient Egypt becomes clear. This leads to a mainstream historical fact. Children were highly valued in ancient Egyptian society, and motherhood was considered a woman's most important and respected role, often seen as a direct link to the continuation of the family line and the prosperity of the community. Your ability to bear children, especially sons, was seen as a blessing and a vital contribution to society's future and your family's legacy. Historians still argue whether the societal pressure to bear children sometimes outweighed a woman's other legal freedoms, or if it was simply a deeply ingrained cultural value. Here's a quirky tidbit. The ancient Egyptians had many fertility goddesses, like Isis and Tauret, the hippo-headed goddess of childbirth and protection, reflecting the immense importance placed on procreation. Women would often carry amulets depicting these goddesses, or perform rituals to ensure a safe pregnancy and healthy birth. Imagine asking Tauret for a blessing before your due date. It's a bit like having a celestial midwife on speed dial, though probably less prone to complaining about late-night calls. You might even hear tales of women leaving offerings at temples specifically to pray for children. Your role as a mother extends far beyond mere procreation. You are the primary nurturer, the first teacher, and the emotional anchor for your children. From infancy, you provide sustenance, comfort, and protection. You teach them the foundational skills they will need to survive and thrive in Egyptian society. For girls, perhaps how to grind grain, weave cloth, or prepare food. For boys, perhaps how to help in the fields or assist with craft work. This is not just instruction. It is the transmission of culture, values, and practical knowledge from one generation to the next. Think about the sheer joy and anticipation that accompanies a pregnancy. While infant mortality rates were high, as they were in all ancient societies, each successful birth was a cause for celebration. A child meant more hands for labor, continuity for the family name, and security for you in your old age. Your children are your future, ensuring that your legacy, and that of your ancestors, lives on. Your household is likely filled with the sounds of children, their laughter, their squabbles, their endless questions. You are constantly guiding, correcting, and encouraging them. The bonds within the family unit are incredibly strong, and your position as a mother is at the very heart of this. You are not just raising individuals, you are raising future citizens of Egypt, ensuring the prosperity and continuation of your lineage. This profound responsibility, combined with the love and joy your children bring, shapes a significant part of your daily existence and gives your life deep meaning within the ancient Egyptian worldview. As your children grow from playful toddlers into inquisitive youngsters, your role shifts subtly from primary nurturer to dedicated instructor. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian parents, particularly mothers, were responsible for instilling values, discipline, and practical skills in their children from an early age. While formal schooling existed, it was largely for boys of higher social standing, meaning most girls, and many boys, learned essential life skills directly within the home from you. Historians still argue whether the education received by girls within the household prepared them adequately for their societal roles, or if it limited their opportunities for intellectual development beyond domestic matters. Here's a quirky tidbit. Ancient Egyptian children played with toys remarkably similar to those of today: wooden animals, dolls with real hair, spinning tops, and even board games like Senat. Imagine your children squabbling over who gets to play with the carved hippopotamus, or who cheated in their game of Senat. It's a bit like seeing a miniature version of modern family life, minus the glowing screens and endless pleas for just 5 more minutes. You might even find yourself crafting simple toys for them from clay or reeds, teaching them dexterity and creativity. Your day is punctuated by moments of child-rearing, blending moments of affectionate play with firm yet gentle discipline. You might teach your daughter how to prepare kohl for eye makeup, a skill that serves both cosmetic and hygienic purposes, or show your son how to mend a fishing net. These aren't just chores. They are lessons in self-sufficiency and contribution to the family's well-being. You encourage their curiosity while guiding them towards responsible behavior. Think about the importance of storytelling. As the sun sets and the family gathers, you might recount tales of the gods, the pharaohs, or the brave journeys along the Nile. These stories are not just entertainment. They are vehicles for moral instruction, teaching about right and wrong, the importance of marked cosmic order and justice, and respect for elders and deities. You are the keeper of tradition, passing down the cultural heritage through narrative. Discipline, when necessary, is typically applied through gentle admonishment or the withdrawal of privileges, rather than harsh physical punishment. The wisdom texts often advise parents to be firm but loving, emphasizing guidance over coercion. You aim to raise well-adjusted, respectful, and productive members of society. You teach them patience as they learn a new skill, perseverance when they face a challenge, and empathy for others. Through your daily interactions, you are shaping the next generation. You are fostering their unique personalities while instilling the values that have sustained Egyptian society for millennia. The future of your family, and indeed of Egypt itself, lies in the hands of the children you raise. And as the primary architect of their early development, your influence is profound and lasting. It's a responsibility you carry with pride, and an endless wellspring of affection, a testament to the enduring power of family bonds. As your children grow, particularly your daughters, you realize that their formal learning opportunities are quite different from what a modern society might offer. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. While formal, scribal education was largely reserved for elite boys, girls in ancient Egypt received practical training within the household, primarily from their mothers or other female relatives, preparing them for their expected domestic and economic roles. This apprenticeship of life ensured the continuity of essential skills. Historians still argue whether this informal education adequately prepared women for their legal and economic autonomy, or if it limited their intellectual growth to purely practical matters. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a schoolroom that's actually just your kitchen or a quiet corner of your courtyard. Instead of papyrus scrolls and ink, your daughter learns by observing you as you grind grain, spin flax, or weave cloth. Her homework might be perfecting a stitch or properly preparing a simple meal. It's a hands-on, immersive education, albeit one that is highly focused. You might even hear jokes about how a girl's true test isn't on a scroll, but in the perfection of her freshly baked bread. Your role in their education is foundational. For your daughters, you teach them the intricate skills of household management that you yourself master: cleaning, cooking, food preservation, and the meticulous art of textile production. You might show them how to prepare simple herbal remedies, care for younger siblings, and manage household supplies. These are not trivial lessons. They are the bedrock of a well-functioning home, ensuring comfort and survival beyond domestic skills. You also impart vital social graces and ethical understanding. You teach them about mat, the concept of cosmic balance and justice, and how to conduct themselves respectfully within the community. You might instruct them on proper etiquette for social gatherings, how to deal with merchants in the market, and the importance of honesty and integrity in all dealings. This moral and social instruction is just as crucial as practical skills. While scribal schools, focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic, were primarily for boys who would enter the bureaucracy or priesthood, there are rare exceptions. We know of a few instances where women, particularly those from very wealthy or royal families, achieved literacy. Imagine the rarity of such a feat. For the vast majority, however, the education you provide within the home is comprehensive for their expected future. This emphasis on practical, hands-on learning ensures that your daughters are well equipped to manage their own households, contribute to the family economy, and raise their own children. It's an education deeply rooted in the realities of daily life, preparing them not just to survive, but to thrive within the unique social and economic framework of ancient Egypt. This practical wisdom, passed down from generation to generation by women like you, forms an invisible yet incredibly strong pillar of Egyptian society. As you move through your community, perhaps assisting a neighbor or visiting a sick relative, you encounter another significant role open to women in ancient Egypt, that of healers and midwives. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Women were actively involved in ancient Egyptian medicine, particularly as midwives and general healers, providing essential healthcare services to their communities. While male physicians held prominent official positions, women often served as the frontline caregivers, especially for women and children. Historians still argue about the extent of specialized medical knowledge held by female healers. Beyond practical experience and traditional remedies, here's a quirky tidbit. Ancient Egyptian medical texts, like the Kahun papyrus, contain sections specifically dedicated to gynecology and obstetrics, indicating a systematic approach to women's health. Imagine having ancient medical prescriptions written on papyrus for common ailments like menstrual cramps or fertility issues. It's a bit like having a very old, very thick medical textbook in your hand, full of remedies involving ingredients you'd probably prefer not to think about. You might even hear tales of women using honey and other natural substances for wound care, long before modern antithesis. As a healer, your knowledge would be a blend of practical experience, inherited wisdom, and perhaps some formalized training. If you were particularly skilled or from a family of practitioners, you would know which herbs could soothe a fever, which poultices could draw out infection, and how to set a simple bone. Your remedies might involve a mix of plant-based medicines, prayers to deities like Sekhmet, the goddess of healing, and various rituals. You are a trusted figure in your community, sought out for your wisdom and compassion. The role of midwife is perhaps one of the most intimate and vital. You are present at the most sacred and vulnerable moments of a woman's life. Childbirth. You provide comfort, guidance, and practical assistance during labor, using your knowledge to ensure the safest possible delivery for both mother and child. Your skills in this area are literally life-saving, in an era where childbirth was a perilous journey for both mother and infant. The bonds formed between a midwife and the families she serves are profound and enduring. Think about the sheer courage and knowledge required for these roles. You're dealing with pain, suffering, and the unpredictable nature of the human body, all without the advanced medical technology of today. Your instincts, your observations, and your accumulated wisdom are your most important tools. The trust placed in you by your community is immense, and you carry that responsibility with quiet dignity, while perhaps not as publicly recognized as the male physicians who worked in temples or for the elite. Your daily work as a healer and midwife directly impacts the well-being of countless individuals. You are a cornerstone of public health, ensuring that your community remains as healthy as possible in a challenging environment. This selfless dedication, often performed in humble settings, highlights another powerful way women contributed to the strength and resilience of ancient Egyptian society. As you continue your journey through the tapestry of women's lives in ancient Egypt, you might occasionally catch glimpses of grand temple structures, their imposing pylons reaching towards the sky. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Women in ancient Egypt could hold significant religious roles, serving as priestesses, divine adoratresses, temple singers, and musicians. Particularly in the cults of goddesses like Hathor or Neith, these positions offered a path to influence, prestige, and sometimes considerable wealth, though the highest priestly offices were typically reserved for men. Historians still argue whether these religious roles offered true spiritual power or were primarily ceremonial, focused on ritual performance rather than theological authority. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine being a chantress or musician in a temple dedicated to Hathor, the goddess of love, music, and joy. You'd be part of a choir of women, perhaps playing sistra, a rattle-like percussion instrument, and singing hymns. It's not just a performance. It's a sacred duty, believed to please the gods and ensure cosmic harmony. It's a bit like being a rock star for the divine, though with fewer screaming fans and more incense. You might even hear about women who dedicated their entire lives to temple service, living within the temple complex and enjoying a comfortable existence as a priestess. Even if in a lesser capacity, you would be involved in the daily rituals of the temple, preparing offerings, cleansing sacred spaces, and performing rites to honor the deities. Your presence and participation are considered vital for the proper functioning of the cult and the well-being of Egypt itself. The reverence shown to the gods permeates every aspect of life, and your role in facilitating this connection is deeply respected. Some women attained truly elevated positions, like that of God's wife of Amen, particularly during the New Kingdom. This was an incredibly powerful and wealthy title, often held by royal women, who essentially became the spiritual consort of the chief god, Amen. While you, as an ordinary woman, wouldn't aspire to such a lofty office, its existence underscores the potential for women to wield immense religious authority. Think about the atmosphere within a temple. The air is thick with the scent of burning incense, the sounds of rhythmic chanting, and the soft strumming of harps or the shaking of cithra. Your voice, perhaps, is part of that chorus, echoing through the halls, a conduit for divine energy. This isn't just a job. It's a spiritual calling, a connection to the fundamental forces that govern the universe according to Egyptian belief. Your involvement in religious institutions offers not only spiritual fulfillment, but often social and economic benefits. Temples were major landowners and employers, and those who served within them often enjoyed security and a good standard of living. This blend of spiritual devotion and practical advantage highlights the multifaceted nature of women's roles in ancient Egyptian religious life, showcasing another avenue where they could find purpose, status, and influence. The air within the temple is cool and still, a stark contrast to the blazing sun outside. As a temple participant, whether a priestess of a minor cult or a humble temple singer, you are drawn into the elaborate tapestry of rituals and offerings. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian religious life was characterized by daily rituals and elaborate offerings to the gods, performed by priests and priestesses to maintain cosmic order, and ensure the prosperity of Egypt. Your participation, however modest, is a vital cog in this intricate spiritual machinery. Historians still argue about the extent of genuine spiritual belief among the populace versus the pragmatic necessity of ritual to ensure good harvests and a stable society. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine preparing a morning offering for a deity, perhaps a fresh loaf of bread you baked, a jug of beer, or a small bouquet of lotus flowers. These offerings weren't just symbolic, they were believed to literally nourish the god's car life force. It's a bit like preparing a lavish breakfast for a very important, invisible guest, hoping they'll be pleased enough to grant your wishes. You might even hear temple jokes about a lazy priestess who tried to pass off stale bread as a fresh, offering a definite no-no if you wanted the gods to be on your side. Your role in these temple rituals is precise and often repetitive, designed to maintain cosmic balance. You might be responsible for purifying sacred vessels, dressing a cult statue of a deity, or performing specific chants at designated times of the day. Every action, every word, every gesture has significance, contributing to the overall efficacy of the ritual. This requires dedication, focus, and a deep understanding of the sacred texts and traditions. The sounds within the temple are a symphony of devotion, the rhythmic shaking of the sistra, the deep thrum of a harp, the low murmur of prayers, and the crackle of burning incense. Your voice might join the chorus of other women, your hands carefully arranging offerings on an altar. You are a conduit between the human and the divine, helping to facilitate the connection that keeps Egypt flourishing. Think about the sheer amount of preparation that goes into these ceremonies. The careful selection of offerings, the meticulous cleaning of the altars, the precise timing of each step. It's a detailed choreography designed to honor the gods and secure their favor. Your contribution, whether it's polishing a bronze mirror for a goddess or weaving special linen for a sacred garment, is integral. These rituals are not just about grand spectacles. They are also about personal devotion. Even if your official role is minor, the act of participating, of connecting with the divine, can be a profoundly spiritual experience. It offers a sense of purpose beyond your daily domestic life, linking you to something far greater than yourself. This blend of meticulous ritual and personal faith highlights the rich spiritual landscape in which women in ancient Egypt could find meaning and contribute to the well-being of their entire civilization. As evening approaches, the heat of the day begins to recede, and a different kind of energy fills the air. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian society loved festivals and feasts, which were frequent and vital social gatherings, offering opportunities for celebration, community bonding, and religious observance. And women were central to these joyful events. You would find yourself participating actively, whether dancing, singing, or simply enjoying the camaraderie. Historians still argue whether these public festivities genuinely fostered social equality, or if underlying hierarchies still dictated who mingled with whom. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a festival dedicated to Baphomet, the cat goddess, where the revelry could get quite wild. People would drink copious amounts of beer, sing, dance, and even engage in boisterous processions. It's a bit like a modern-day street party mixed with a religious revival, only with more feline worship. You might even hear tales of people painting their faces or wearing elaborate costumes, making the festivities a truly vibrant spectacle. Just try not to trip over a stray cat. They're everywhere during Bastid's party. Your day-to-day life, while busy, is punctuated by these periods of joyous release. You attend festivals that mark agricultural cycles, celebrate the reign of a pharaoh, or honor specific deities. These are not just public holidays. They are deeply ingrained cultural events where the entire community comes together. You might join in the rhythmic clapping, the swaying dances, or the enthusiastic singing that accompanies the festivities. Feasts are an equally important part of your social life. Whether it's a private family celebration, a wedding banquet, or a larger communal gathering, food and drink are central. You might contribute dishes you've prepared, perhaps some of that nutritious bread or a special sweet made with dates. The air would be filled with the aromas of roasting meat, fresh bread, and fragrant herbs. Think about the sheer sensory experience of these gatherings. The vibrant colors of people's linen garments, adorned with jewelry, the lively sounds of harps, flutes, and percussion, the taste of delicious food and refreshing beer, and the feeling of shared joy and belonging. These events offer a crucial outlet from the routines of daily life, fostering a sense of unity and shared identity within your community. While men and women might gather in separate groups at times, particularly in more formal religious processions, the overall atmosphere of festivals and feasts encourages mixing and interaction. You would socialize with friends and family, share gossip, and simply enjoy the collective effervescence. These are moments where social hierarchies might momentarily soften, and everyone, from the humblest farmer's wife to the highest official's spouse, participates in the collective celebration. Your presence and participation are vital too. The spirit of these gatherings, reminding you that life in ancient Egypt wasn't just about work and duty, but also about profound joy and communal bonding. As you prepare for a feast or simply for your daily appearance, you become intimately familiar with the elaborate world of ancient Egyptian beauty standards, cosmetics, and wigs. This leads to a mainstream historical fact. Both men and women in ancient Egypt indulged in extensive beauty routines, using cosmetics, perfumes, and elaborate wigs not only for aesthetic purposes, but also for hygiene and social status. Your attention to personal grooming is far more than mere vanity. It's a cultural expectation and a reflection of your social standing. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of cosmetics truly blurred gender lines in beauty, or, if distinct, feminine and masculine styles persisted. Here's a quirky tidbit: the famous black eyeliner. Kohl wasn't just for looking dramatic. It was believed to protect the eyes from the harsh sun and ward off eye infections, acting as an ancient form of sunscreen and antiseptic. Imagine applying your makeup and simultaneously protecting yourself from the glaring desert sun. It's a bit like having a beauty product that doubles as a medical necessity, a true multitasker. You might even hear jokes about a particularly pale noblewoman who forgot her coal and mistook a distant oasis for a mirage. Your morning routine might involve applying coal to your eyes, creating that distinctive almond shape. You might also use green eye paint made from malachite. Then there are the various oils and creams, often scented with myrrh, frankincense, or lotus, which you would apply to moisturize your skin and protect it from the dry climate. These weren't just luxuries. They were vital for maintaining healthy skin in the desert environment. Wigs are another significant part of your appearance. Depending on your status and wealth, your wig could be simple or elaborately styled, made from human hair or plant fibers, and adorned with ribbons or gold ornaments. Wigs were worn by both men and women, often to protect the scalp from the sun, and for cleanliness, as they could be easily removed and cleaned. Imagine the effort of maintaining a large, elaborate wig, perhaps needing a dedicated servant just to keep it in perfect condition. It's a testament to the dedication to appearance. Think about the artistry involved in these beauty practices, the careful blending of pigments, the intricate braiding of hair for wigs, the delicate scents of perfumes. It's a form of personal expression and a reflection of a sophisticated culture. Your appearance communicates your social standing, your adherence to cultural norms, and even your personal wealth, from the humblest woman applying a simple smudge of coal to a wealthy noblewoman adorned with a towering wig and layers of scented oils. Beauty was an integral part of life. It was about health, status, and the expression of a refined aesthetic. This attention to detail in personal presentation highlights a society that placed great value on order, cleanliness, and outward appearances, making your daily beauty ritual a small but significant act of cultural participation. After meticulously applying your kohl and perhaps adjusting a simple wig, your attention naturally turns to your attire for the day. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian fashion, particularly for women, emphasized lightweight, breathable linen garments, designed for comfort in the hot climate and often adorned with jewelry to indicate status. Your clothing is not just functional, it's a reflection of practical design mixed with aesthetic elegance. Historians still argue whether the apparent simplicity of Egyptian clothing suggests a lack of fashion innovation compared to later periods, or if its enduring style reflects a perfect adaptation to the environment. Here's a quirky tidbit. The pristine white linen worn by Egyptians wasn't just a style choice. It was also incredibly practical. White reflects sunlight, keeping you cooler in the scorching heat. And linen, made from flax plants, is naturally absorbent and breathable, wicking away sweat. Imagine trying to survive an Egyptian summer in wool or heavy cotton. You'd probably melt faster than a forgotten ice sculpture. You might even hear jokes about a visitor from a colder land complaining about the heat, while you casually fan yourself in your cool, airy linen. Your typical garment is a simple, sheath-like dress, often called a calasiris. It's made from a single piece of linen, draped and pleated to create a flattering silhouette. For everyday wear, it might be a modest length, perhaps reaching your ankles, with narrow shoulder straps. For more formal occasions, you might wear a finer, more sheer version, sometimes with intricate pleating or beadwork. The elegance lies in its simplicity and the quality of the fabric. Think about the feeling of the linen against your skin. It's soft, cool, and incredibly comfortable, allowing for ease of movement as you go about your daily tasks. The material itself, spun and woven often by women like you, is a testament to Egyptian craftsmanship. The ability to produce such fine textiles was a source of national pride. Your lifestyles dictate the practicalities of your fashion. If you're a farmer's wife, your linen might be coarser and more durable, designed to withstand the rigors of working in the fields. If you're a noblewoman, your garments would be of the finest, almost transparent linen, perhaps layered and embellished with elaborate collars and heavy jewelry. Jewelry from simple bead necklaces to intricate gold. Pectorals serves as a key indicator of wealth and status. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen. Well, at least your clothes are less smelly. Even with the apparent uniformity of style, there's room for personal expression through accessories, hairstyles or wigs, as you recall, and the quality of your garments. Your clothing allows you to move freely, stay cool, and present yourself according to the social expectations of your time. It's a harmonious blend of practicality and understated elegance, perfectly suited to the unique climate and aesthetic of ancient Egypt. With your appearance suitably prepared, you consider the social structures that shape your relationships, particularly those involving marriage. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Marriage in ancient Egypt was primarily a social, an economic arrangement rather than a religious ceremony, often formalized through contracts and focused on establishing a household and producing heirs. While love and affection certainly played a role, the practical aspects of unions and contracts were paramount for establishing family stability. Historians still argue whether the absence of a formal religious ceremony made marriage less sacred in the eyes of Egyptians, or if its contractual nature simply reflected a pragmatic approach to partnerships. Here's a quirky tidbit. Ancient Egyptian marriage contracts, as you recall, weren't just about promises of fidelity. They were highly detailed legal documents outlining property rights, financial obligations, and provisions in case of divorce or the death of a spouse. It's less do you take this person to be your lawfully wedded partner, and more do you agree to these specific terms and conditions in triplicate. You might even hear jokes about a particularly long marriage contract needing its own dedicated scribe just to write down all the clauses. For you, as a woman, the choice of a partner might involve your family's input, but personal preference also held considerable weight. Unlike many other ancient societies, forced marriages were not common, while arranged marriages did occur, especially among the elite, to consolidate wealth or power. The ideal was often a match based on mutual affection and suitability. You were typically expected to marry within your social class, though exceptions certainly exist. The purpose of marriage is clear: to establish a new household, to pool resources, and most importantly, to produce children who will continue the family line. Remember how crucial motherhood is. A successful marriage ensures the continuity of your family's legacy and provides economic security. The new couple would often set up their own home, or the groom might move into the bride's family home, especially if she had property. Think about the implications of the marriage contract. It details what property each spouse brings into the marriage, how joint property will be managed, and how assets would be divided in the event of a separation. This legal framework offers significant protection for you as a woman, ensuring that your rights to property and financial stability are safeguarded even if the marriage doesn't last. This stands in stark contrast to many other cultures where women were left economically vulnerable after divorce. The decision to marry and who to marry is a significant one, shaping your future in profound ways. It's a blend of personal choice, family expectations, and practical considerations, all underpinned by a legal system that strives for fairness. This pragmatic yet often affectionate approach to marriage highlights a unique aspect of ancient Egyptian society, where even the most intimate personal relationships were grounded in clear legal and economic frameworks. Even as you contemplate the contractual nature of marriage, you're aware that not all unions last forever. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Divorce was relatively easy to obtain in ancient Egypt for both men and women, with either party able to initiate proceedings, and the legal system ensured a fair division of property and support for the woman and any children. This remarkable degree of freedom and fairness in divorce proceedings stands out dramatically compared to other ancient societies. Historians still argue whether the ease of divorce contributed to marital instability or simply reflected a pragmatic approach to unhappy unions. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a couple deciding to divorce. There wasn't usually a need for a lengthy court battle or proving fault. Often, it could be a relatively simple agreement between the two parties, sometimes recorded before witnesses or a scribe to ensure legal standing. It's a bit like a mutual separation agreement today, minus the endless paperwork and exorbitant legal fees. You might even hear tales of couples divorcing and then remarrying each other later, having realized they actually missed one another. A true testament to human complexity. For you, as a woman, the ability to initiate divorce is a powerful safeguard. If a marriage becomes unbearable, or if your husband is abusive or fails in his responsibilities, you are not trapped. You have the legal right to dissolve the union, and crucially, you are not stigmatized for doing so. Ancient Egyptian society was remarkably accepting of divorce, recognizing that not all partnerships would endure. When a divorce occurs, the law protects your interests. You would typically receive back your dowry, the property or goods you brought into the marriage, and often a share of the community property acquired during the marriage. If there are children, provisions would be made for their support, usually with the father bearing the primary financial responsibility. This legal framework ensures that women are not left destitute or socially outcast after a divorce. Think about the profound sense of security this offers. You enter a marriage knowing that if it doesn't work, you have legal recourse and will not be left impoverished. This encourages a more equitable relationship within the marriage, as both parties understand the implications of a potential separation. It shifts the power dynamic considerably compared to cultures where divorce was a male prerogative, leaving women vulnerable and dependent. This system of straightforward and financially equitable divorce highlights a truly progressive aspect of ancient Egyptian society. It speaks volumes about the value placed on individual well-being and the recognition of a woman's right to self-determination, even in the most personal of relationships. It's a facet of your life here that truly sets you apart from your counterparts across the ancient world, offering a surprising degree of freedom. As you navigate the intricacies of your social life, the concept of inheritance comes into sharp focus, particularly as you consider your own family's legacy. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian women had full rights to inherit property, including land, houses, and goods, from their parents, husbands, or other relatives, and could pass down their own wealth to whomever they chose in their wills. This robust system for passing down wealth underscores their complete legal personhood and economic autonomy. Historians still argue whether the practical application of these inheritance laws meant women consistently held as much real economic power as men, or if social pressures often influenced how they managed their inherited assets. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine receiving a substantial inheritance from a distant aunt, perhaps a small plot of fertile land along the Nile, or a collection of valuable bronze tools. You wouldn't need a male relative to act as a trustee or manager. That inheritance would be entirely yours to control. It's a bit like winning the ancient Egyptian lottery, only with more responsibility and less instant gratification. You might even hear tales of women who became surprisingly wealthy through a series of fortunate inheritances, becoming significant landowners in their own right. Your ability to inherit land is particularly significant. Land was the primary source of wealth and sustenance in agricultural Egypt. To have direct ownership of it, and the right to manage it, cultivate it, or sell it, gives you a profound level of economic power. It means your future isn't solely dependent on your husband or father. You can build your own economic security through inherited assets. Furthermore, you also have the power to bequeath your own property through a will. This means you can decide how your assets will be distributed after your death, whether to your children, other relatives, or even friends. You are not obligated to leave everything to your husband or sons. This right to determine your own legacy is a powerful expression of your personal agency and control over your accumulated wealth. Think about the long-term planning this allows. You might set aside a specific field for a favorite daughter, or ensure that a certain sum of silver is given to a trusted servant. This ability to shape the future of your property reflects a society that recognized and respected a woman's individual will and her right to make decisions that extend beyond her lifetime. This robust system of inheritance stands in stark contrast to many other ancient cultures where daughters often received only a small dowry, and control of family property remained firmly in male hands. In ancient Egypt, you are not just a temporary custodian of wealth. You are a full owner, with the power to accumulate, manage, and distribute it as you see fit. This crucial aspect of your legal rights ensures economic stability and reinforces your position as a respected and empowered individual within your society. As you move beyond the confines of your home and property, you observe the broader economic landscape of ancient Egypt, noticing a crucial mainstream historical fact. Women were active participants in the workforce, engaging in a wide array of occupations alongside men, beyond purely domestic duties. This widespread workforce participation highlights their vital contribution to the economy and challenges the notion of women being confined solely to the home. Historians still argue whether women received equal pay for equal work in ancient Egypt, or if unwritten social norms often led to wage disparities. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine strolling through a busy marketplace and seeing women not just selling goods, but also working as scribes, operating stalls, or even assisting in workshops. You might even spot a female hairdresser meticulously styling a client's wig, or a woman supervising a team of potters. It's a far cry from the image of women as delicate flowers, rarely venturing outside their homes. You might even hear jokes about how some of the shrewdest negotiators at the market are actually the women, always securing the best price. Your own participation might involve working in the fields alongside your husband or brothers during harvest season, helping to gather the bountiful crops from the fertile Nile Delta. Or perhaps you specialize in crafts, spending your days spinning flax into thread, weaving intricate patterns into linen, or crafting baskets from reeds. These are not just hobbies. They are skilled trades that contribute directly to your family's income Think about the sheer variety of roles you might encounter. Women worked in bakeries and breweries, as you recall, producing staples for the community. They served as musicians and dancers at feasts and festivals. Some might even work in the administrative sphere, perhaps as servants in the households of nobles, managing their linens or overseeing the kitchen staff. The presence of women in diverse occupations speaks volumes about the pragmatic nature of ancient Egyptian society. Every able-bodied person was expected to contribute to the collective good, and talent was often valued regardless of gender, especially in practical trades. While the highest echelons of power, pharaoh, vizier, military general, were almost exclusively male, with very notable exceptions, of course, the everyday economy saw a much greater blend of participation. This active involvement in the workforce gives you, as a woman, a tangible connection to the broader economic life of your community. Your labor is valued, your skills are utilized, and your contributions are visible. It's a powerful testament to a society that, while patriarchal in its top leadership, offered significant practical opportunities and economic agency to its female citizens, allowing you to shape your own livelihood and contribute meaningfully to the prosperity of ancient Egypt. Beyond the everyday lives of ordinary women, you cast your gaze towards the pinnacle of power, where a truly astonishing mainstream historical fact emerges. Ancient Egypt, uniquely among ancient civilizations, saw several women ascend to the highest office, ruling as pharaohs in their own right, wielding immense power and influence over the entire nation. These royal women, like Hatshepsut and Cleopatra VII, are not mere consorts. They are powerful monarchs, challenging and sometimes overturning traditional gender roles at the very top. Historians still argue about the exact circumstances that allowed these female pharaohs to rule, and whether their reigns were seen as legitimate deviations or signs of societal instability. Here's a quirky tidbit. Hatshepsut, one of the most successful female pharaohs, even had herself depicted with a false beard and male physique in her statues and reliefs. It wasn't about denying her womanhood, but about asserting her legitimacy as a pharaoh, adopting the traditional iconography of kingship. Imagine deciding, right, if you want a king, I'll be the king, beard and all. It's a bit like a modern leader adopting a specific uniform to command respect, only with a lot more gold and ancient Egyptian flair. You might even hear hushed whispers about her determination, sometimes bordering on stubbornness, to ensure her reign was recognized as fully legitimate. As you consider these formidable figures, you realize that their existence speaks volumes about the underlying societal flexibility concerning women's capabilities. While most women might not aspire to the throne, the very possibility of a woman ruling indicates a culture that, at its core, was capable of accepting female leadership. These queens, through their intelligence, political acumen, and sheer force of will, navigated a male-dominated political landscape to reach the absolute apex of power. Think about the challenges they faced. Hatshepsut had to contend with a male-dominated court and the traditional line of succession. Cleopatra VII, centuries later, masterfully played a political game involving the two most powerful men in the Roman world, Caesar and Antony, to preserve her kingdom. Their reigns were not mere accidents. They were testaments to their extraordinary abilities to govern, command armies, and administer a vast empire. Their stories are not just tales of individual triumph. They serve as powerful symbols of the potential for female leadership within the Egyptian framework. While they were exceptions to the general rule of male pharaohs, Their very existence highlights a cultural openness that distinguishes ancient Egypt from its contemporaries. They demonstrate that the inherent capabilities of women were, at times, recognized and elevated to the highest office, proving that gender was not an absolute barrier to ultimate authority. These royal women, through their direct rule and lasting legacies, left an indelible mark on history, reminding you that in the land of the Nile, even the most formidable power could reside in female hands, a truly unique and empowering aspect of the ancient world. Even if you aren't one of the extraordinary queens who ascended to the throne, you still recognize that political influence wasn't exclusively the domain of men. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. While women generally did not hold the highest political offices, many royal women, and even some non-royal noblewomen, wielded considerable influence through their roles in the royal court, religious institutions, and as advisors to powerful men. Their impact, though often indirect, was a significant force shaping the decisions of the elite. Historians still argue whether this soft power was a strategic choice by women to navigate patriarchal structures, or if it was simply the only avenue for influence available to them. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a powerful vizier, the pharaoh's chief minister, making a crucial decision about a new building project or a military campaign. It's entirely possible his wife or mother, a shrewd and intelligent woman, had offered her invaluable insights behind closed doors. It's like having a silent partner in the highest echelons of power, whose advice is whispered rather than publicly declared. You might even hear tales of a particularly clever royal mother who subtly guided her young son, the pharaoh, through early political challenges. Your potential for influence often stems from your relationships within the royal court, or among the noble families. As a wife, mother, or sister of a powerful man, you would have access to information, connections, and the ear of decision-makers. This doesn't mean you're directly issuing decrees, but your opinions and perspectives are undoubtedly considered. Think about the various avenues for this influence. In religious institutions, powerful priestesses, as you recall from section 11, could command vast resources and exert moral authority that indirectly impacted political decisions. Within the royal harem, even women who weren't the principal queen could form powerful alliances and shape the succession or the fate of political rivals. This power behind the throne was a very real and often effective way for women to participate. In the political landscape, this isn't about being seen in public, delivering grand speeches. It's about the subtle art of persuasion, the careful cultivation of alliances, and the strategic deployment of information. It requires intelligence, discretion, and a deep understanding of court politics. Women in these roles often acted as intermediaries, conveying messages, brokering deals, and offering strategic advice that shaped the course of events, while the visible face of ancient Egyptian governance was largely male. The quiet, persistent influence of women was an undeniable force. They contributed to political stability, advised on important matters, and often played critical roles in maintaining the intricate social and power dynamics of the elite. This less visible but equally potent form of political engagement highlights yet another way women in ancient Egypt asserted their agency and left their mark on history. As you move through your daily life, you become acutely aware of the robust framework that governs your society, particularly the legal protections afforded to you. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egyptian women enjoyed a remarkable degree of legal protection and rights, enabling them to pursue justice in courts, enter into contracts, and manage their own affairs without male guardianship. Your ability to navigate the legal system with relative autonomy stands in stark contrast to the restrictions faced by women in many other ancient civilizations. Historians still argue whether the application of these laws was always consistent across all social strata and regions, or if practical biases sometimes favored men. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a dispute over property ownership, perhaps a neighbor encroaching on your inherited land. You, as a woman, could take that neighbor to court, present your case, and expect a fair hearing. There's no need for your father, husband, or brother to represent you. You speak for yourself. It's a bit like being your own legal counsel in a toga, arguing your case with conviction. You might even hear tales of women who were remarkably effective in legal disputes, leveraging their understanding of the law to their advantage. The courts you might encounter range from local community tribunals to more formal state courts. But the principle remains: your legal personhood is recognized. This means you can enter into contracts, whether it's for buying and selling goods, leasing land, or even hiring labor, with full legal validity. These contracts are binding, and you are held accountable for them, just as any man would be. This demonstrates a deep-seated respect for your capacity for independent action and decision-making. Think about the profound sense of security this provides. If someone wrongs you, if a contract is breached, or if your property rights are violated, you have recourse. You can seek justice, and the law is, theoretically, on your side. This isn't a society where women are left vulnerable to the whims of men or without legal standing. On the contrary, your rights are clearly defined and upheld, providing a crucial safety net for your economic and social well-being. Your ability to pursue justice ensures that your freedoms are not merely theoretical. If a loan goes unpaid, if a tenant defaults, or if you are unfairly treated, the legal system offers a path to resolution. This empowerment within the legal sphere is a cornerstone of your unique experience as a woman in ancient Egypt. It speaks to a societal belief in your agency and capacity for independent action. This robust system of legal protections, allowing women to own property, initiate divorce, and defend their rights in court, truly sets ancient Egypt apart. It's a powerful testament to a civilization that, for its time, offered an extraordinary degree of autonomy and legal standing to its female citizens, allowing you to live a life with greater security and self-determination. As you move through the bustling streets and marketplaces of ancient Egypt, amidst the rich tapestry of free citizens, you also encounter a stark contrast: the reality of slavery. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Slavery existed in ancient Egypt, with enslaved individuals, both male and female, typically acquired through warfare or debt, occupying a lower social status and possessing significantly fewer rights and protections than free citizens. For women in particular, this was a profoundly different and often tragic reality, sharply contrasting with the freedoms afforded to you. Historians still argue whether the treatment of enslaved people was generally benign or consistently harsh, as evidence can be contradictory. Here's a quirky tidbit. While enslaved people did exist, their status in ancient Egypt was often less rigid than in other societies like Rome or Greece. They could sometimes own property, marry free Egyptians, and even gain freedom. It wasn't always a life sentence without hope. Imagine an enslaved woman working in a wealthy household, performing tasks from grinding grain to weaving fine linen, yet still hoping to one day purchase her freedom or marry into a free family. It's a bit like being stuck in a very long, unpaid internship, with the possibility of a permanent position if you work hard enough. You might even hear hushed tales of exceptionally talented enslaved individuals rising to positions of influence within their master's household. For an enslaved woman, life is fundamentally different from your own. She is considered property, albeit with some legal distinctions from inanimate objects. Her rights are severely curtailed. She cannot own property, initiate legal proceedings, though her owner might do so on her behalf, or choose her own spouse without permission. Her economic dependence on her owner is absolute. Think about the daily life of an enslaved woman. Her tasks might include demanding physical labor, such as working in fields, quarries, or mines. Though many female enslaved individuals worked within private households, there they would perform domestic duties like cooking, cleaning, child-rearing, and serving their owners. While some might be treated with kindness, their lives are ultimately dictated by the will of their masters, making them vulnerable to mistreatment and exploitation. The primary ways individuals became enslaved were through being prisoners of war, captured in military campaigns, or through falling into debt so severe that they sold themselves or their family members into servitude. This highlights the precariousness of life for the poorest members of society, where one bad harvest or a series of misfortunes could lead to a loss of freedom. The stark reality of slavery serves as a powerful reminder of the privileges you enjoy as a free Egyptian woman. Your legal protections, your economic autonomy, and your ability to choose your path stand in sharp relief against the limited and often harsh existence of those in bondage. It emphasizes that while ancient Egypt was progressive for its time regarding women's rights, it was not immune to the widespread practice of human subjugation that existed across the ancient world. As you observe the diverse population of ancient Egypt, you might notice faces and customs that are not entirely familiar, bringing you to a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egypt was a melting pot of cultures, and foreign women, whether immigrants, captives, or traders, often integrated into Egyptian society, adapting to local customs while sometimes retaining aspects of their own heritage. Their experiences varied greatly depending on their origin and circumstances, highlighting the society's capacity for integration and adaptation. Historians still argue whether the integration of foreign populations was driven by Egyptian tolerance or by the pragmatic need for labor and resources. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a woman from the land of Nubia, south of Egypt, settling into a new life in Thebes. She might continue to wear some of her traditional jewelry or hairstyles, while also adopting the light linen garments favored by Egyptians. It's a bit like someone moving to a new country today, blending in with local customs while still holding on to their roots, perhaps still craving that one specific dish from their homeland. You might even hear tales of foreign women who brought new skills or unique crafts to Egypt, enriching the local economy and culture. For foreign women who came to Egypt, the process of integration could be gradual. If they arrived as captives of war, their initial status would likely be that of enslaved individuals, as you recall. However, over time, some could gain freedom and eventually assimilate into Egyptian society, perhaps marrying an Egyptian and adopting local customs and religious practices. Those who came as immigrants or traders, seeking new opportunities, would find a society that, while culturally distinct, was often open to foreigners. They might settle in specific communities or neighborhoods where others from their homeland resided, helping ease the transition. These women would learn the Egyptian language, adopt local dress, and participate in daily life, just like any other Egyptian woman. Think about the challenges and opportunities involved in this adaptation. A foreign woman would need to learn new ways of doing things, from how to grind grain to understanding the local legal system. Yet, they might also bring valuable skills or knowledge that were prized in Egypt, such as expertise in specific crafts, trading networks, or agricultural techniques. This cultural exchange enriched Egyptian society, introducing new ideas and practices. The children of these integrated foreign women would often be fully Egyptian, inheriting the rights and status of their Egyptian parent. This demonstrates a flexible social system that allowed for upward mobility and absorption of diverse populations. The experiences of foreign women highlight the dynamic nature of ancient Egyptian society, showcasing its ability to absorb and integrate people from different backgrounds, even while maintaining its core cultural identity. Their journeys of adaptation contributes another fascinating layer to the complex reality of women's lives along the Nile. As you gaze upon the vibrant murals adorning temple walls and tomb chambers, you encounter a fascinating aspect of how women were perceived in ancient Egypt. There's a prominent historical fact here. Ancient Egyptian art frequently depicted women, often in idealized forms, emphasizing their grace, beauty, and their equal standing with men. Though these artistic conventions sometimes presented an idealized version of daily life rather than a strict documentary, these artistic representations offer a window into societal ideals, even if they don't capture every nuanced reality. Historians still argue whether the idealized depictions of women reflected genuine societal respect, or if they were merely artistic tropes that didn't fully translate to the experiences of all women. Here's a quirky tidbit. Look closely at tomb paintings, and you'll often see husbands and wives depicted at the same size, or with the wife's arm affectionately around her husband's waist. This visual equality in scale and intimacy is almost unheard of in the art of other ancient cultures, where women were typically shown smaller or in more subservient positions. It's like a silent declaration plastered on a wall for eternity. We are partners, we are equals. You might even hear jokes among scribes about artists who occasionally forgot the rules and made the wife look too dominant, leading to a quick repaint. While the art often shows an ideal, it also provides glimpses of the everyday. You'll see women engaged in a variety of activities, winnowing grain, weaving cloth, playing musical instruments, or enjoying a banquet with their families. These scenes blend the aspirational with the observational, giving you a rich sense of both the desired image and the practical reality of female life. Think about the sheer elegance conveyed in these artistic portrayals. Women are often depicted with slender, elongated figures, delicate features, and graceful poses. Their elaborate wigs, intricate jewelry, and fine linen garments are meticulously rendered, highlighting the importance of personal adornment and aesthetic refinement in Egyptian culture. This isn't just about beauty. It's about embodying order, balance, and the perfection of mat. However, it's important to remember that these are often formal, artistic conventions. While they certainly reflect a high regard for women, they might not fully capture the dirt and sweat of daily labor, or the occasional hardship faced by women in less privileged circumstances. The ideal often triumphs over the strictly realistic. For instance, a woman working in the fields might appear perfectly coiffed and unblemished, a visual shorthand for her role rather than a photographic depiction. Yet, despite the idealization, the consistent portrayal of women as dignified, active, and frequently equal companions to men in ancient Egyptian art, speaks volumes. It reinforces the legal and social status you've been exploring, suggesting that these rights were not just written laws, but deeply ingrained cultural values. The art serves as a powerful visual testament to the unique and respected position of women in this ancient land. Despite the remarkable freedoms and respected status you've discovered for women in ancient Egypt, it's vital to acknowledge that no society is without its complexities and limitations. You'll observe a key historical reality. While ancient Egyptian women enjoyed significant legal equality and opportunities, they still faced certain societal limitations and challenges that generally kept them from the very highest echelons of public power and military authority. Understanding these challenges and limitations provides a more complete picture of their lives. Historians still argue whether these limitations were due to inherent patriarchal structures, practical divisions of labor, or simply cultural norms that evolved over millennia. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine trying to become a vizier, the pharaoh's chief minister, or a general leading an army into battle. While a few women broke through to become pharaohs, these roles were overwhelmingly male. It's a bit like trying to join an exclusive ancient boys' club, where the entry requirements involve wearing a kilt and having a very loud voice. You might even hear jokes about how a woman could run an entire household and manage its finances perfectly. But leading 1,000 men into war was just not her department. The most significant limitations you encounter are in the political and military spheres. While a woman could hold considerable influence, even within the royal court, direct command of armies or the highest administrative positions were typically reserved for men. This wasn't necessarily due to a lack of capability on women's part, but rather deeply ingrained societal norms about leadership and traditional gender roles in public office. Think about the physical demands of certain roles. Leading an army on campaign, which often involved harsh desert conditions and brutal combat, was undeniably a male-dominated sphere. Similarly, construction projects or working in quarries often required immense physical strength, making these roles less common for women. However, women could and did supervise such activities, demonstrating their managerial skills. Another subtle limitation might be the emphasis on your primary role as a household manager and mother. While respected and empowering, this focus could inherently limit the time and resources available for pursuing more public-facing careers, especially for women of ordinary means. It's a balancing act, where the demands of family life often take precedence. Despite these boundaries, it's crucial to remember the context. Compared to women in ancient Greece, where they were largely confined to the home and had virtually no legal rights, or in Rome, where they were always under male guardianship, the limitations in Egypt appear almost progressive. The glass ceiling existed, but it was often much higher, and certainly more permeable than elsewhere in the ancient world. Your life as an ancient Egyptian woman might have had its constraints, but within those constraints, you enjoyed a remarkable degree of freedom and respect, navigating a society that, while not a utopia, offered more opportunities than most. As you consider the limitations on your roles, you can't help but notice the prevailing structure of society, leading to a crucial historical observation. Despite the significant legal equality afforded to women, ancient Egyptian society remained fundamentally patriarchal, with men typically holding the most visible and highest positions of power and authority in government, religion, and the military. This means that while you possessed many individual freedoms, The overarching system of governance and public life was generally male-dominated. Historians still argue whether this patriarchal structure was a natural outcome of societal development, or a deliberate reinforcement of male dominance. Despite women's capabilities, here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a council meeting of high officials discussing the Nile flood or a new trade expedition. While a queen or a powerful noblewoman might influence these discussions behind the scenes, you generally wouldn't see women directly leading these public assemblies. It's a bit like a modern corporation where talented women are crucial to operations. But the board of directors is still overwhelmingly male. You might even hear cynical jokes among men about women being too busy with household affairs to handle the serious business of state, even as their wives run successful businesses. The patriarchal society manifests itself most clearly at the top of the social and political hierarchy. The pharaoh, the vizier, the high priests, and the military generals were almost exclusively male roles. While you've learned about exceptional female pharaohs, these were deviations from the norm, often occurring during periods of crisis or succession struggles. Their reigns, though powerful, underscored the prevailing expectation of male leadership. Think about the traditional depictions of family in art and texts. While women are shown as partners and equals, the man is typically presented as the head of the household, responsible for its public representation and interactions with the broader state. He is the one who performs the official offerings to the gods on behalf of the family, and he is the one who typically represents the family in legal disputes though. As you recall, you could certainly represent yourself. This doesn't negate the legal and economic freedoms you enjoy. It simply means that your sphere of direct influence, for most ordinary women, is more likely to be within the home, the marketplace, or specific religious roles, rather than in the highest echelons of state power. It's a balanced, strong individual rights within a generally male-led societal framework. This underlying patriarchal structure is a common thread throughout most ancient civilizations, and ancient Egypt, despite its progressive stance on women's rights, was not entirely immune to it. It highlights that even in a society that valued women highly, traditional power dynamics often played out at the very top. However, the unique aspect of Egypt is how much agency and personal freedom women held despite this overarching structure, making it a fascinating blend of convention and revolutionary progress. Having explored the unique status of women in ancient Egypt, it's only natural to draw a comparison to other cultures of the same era. A profound historical fact emerges. The legal and social status of women in ancient Egypt was remarkably advanced and enjoyed greater rights and freedoms than women in virtually any other major ancient civilization, including those in Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome. This sets your experience in ancient Egypt apart, highlighting its truly unique position. In the annals of history, historians still argue about the precise reasons for this exceptionalism, debating whether it stemmed from religious beliefs, economic necessities, or distinct cultural evolution. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine a woman from ancient Athens, where she was largely confined to the home, couldn't own property, and had no legal standing, suddenly finding herself in your shoes in Egypt. She'd probably think she'd stumbled into a utopian dream, or perhaps a bizarre, matriarchal parallel universe. You mean you can own land, and divorce your husband, and run a business by yourself? Her jaw would likely drop so far it would hit the sandy ground. You might even hear jokes about Athenian men needing to visit Egypt to learn a thing or two about treating women. though they'd probably dismiss it as mere Egyptian eccentricity. Consider Mesopotamia, for example. While women there had some legal rights, they were often under the strict guardianship of male relatives, and divorce was generally more difficult and less favorable to women. In ancient Greece, particularly Athens, women were almost entirely excluded from public life, rarely seen outside the home, and legally considered perpetual minors under male control. Even in Sparta, where women enjoyed more physical freedom and managed estates, their legal personhood was still limited compared to yours. And then there's ancient Rome. Roman women, while gaining more freedom over time, were always legally under the authority of a male, initially their father, paterfamilias, and later their husband. While they could influence affairs through their husbands, their direct legal and economic autonomy remained significantly less than yours in Egypt. The concept of a Roman woman independently owning and managing a large estate without a male guardian was virtually unheard of for much of Roman history. Think about the implications of this striking difference. Your ability to own land, enter contracts, initiate divorce, and participate freely in the economy places you in an extraordinarily privileged position globally for your time. This isn't just about a few queens. This is about the everyday lives of ordinary women like you. It suggests a fundamental cultural value that saw women as capable, independent individuals, rather than as perpetual dependents or mere property. This unique position for women in ancient Egypt is one of the most compelling aspects of its legacy. It challenges modern assumptions about gender roles in antiquity and reveals a society that, in many ways, was far more egalitarian in practice than its contemporaries. Your life here, with its blend of responsibilities and freedoms, stands as a testament to this remarkable and enduring historical anomaly. As you reflect on your daily life and the remarkable rights you possess, you begin to grasp the enduring legacy of ancient Egyptian women. This brings into sharp focus a profound historical truth: the unique legal and social freedoms enjoyed by women in ancient Egypt left an indelible mark on the civilization, influencing its stability, economy, and cultural identity, and offering a historical precedent for female empowerment. Their contributions were not just ephemeral. They formed an integral part of what made ancient Egypt such a long-lasting and influential society. Historians still argue whether this legacy of female empowerment was truly understood by later civilizations, or if it largely remained an isolated historical curiosity. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine looking back through the thousands of years of Egyptian history and seeing a continuous line of women owning property, running businesses, and even ruling as pharaohs. This unbroken chain of female agency stands in stark contrast to many other ancient societies, where periods of female influence were often short-lived or exceptional. It's like discovering a hidden river of progress, flowing steadily beneath the surface of history, even when other lands faced a dry spell for women's rights. You might even hear historians joke about how the Egyptians must have had a secret book of women's rights that got lost to the sands of time, because their system seems so far ahead of its contemporaries. The enduring influence of women is evident in various aspects of Egyptian life. Their active participation in the economy contributed significantly to the nation's wealth and prosperity. Women were not just consumers, they were producers, traders, and managers, their skills and labor vital to the daily functioning of society. This economic independence contributed to the overall stability of households and communities. Think about the impact on family life. The legal equality and protections afforded to women likely fostered more equitable and stable family units. When women have agency and security, they can contribute more effectively to the well-being of their children and the household, creating a stronger societal foundation. The respect shown to mothers and wives permeated the domestic sphere, ensuring a harmonious balance. Culturally, the depictions of women in art and literature as dignified, capable, and often equal partners to men reinforced a societal ideal that was remarkably progressive. This imagery, consistently portrayed over millennia, became part of the Egyptian identity, showcasing a unique perspective on gender roles that was passed down through generations. The very existence of female pharaohs like Hatshepsut and Cleopatra, as you recall, stands as a powerful symbol of what was possible for women in Egypt. While rare, their reigns demonstrated that gender was not an absolute barrier to ultimate authority, providing an unparalleled example for the ancient world. This direct and indirect influence of women across all levels of society, from the humblest weaver to the grandest queen, created a civilization that valued their contributions in profound and lasting ways. This legacy, woven into the very fabric of Egyptian history, continues to fascinate and inspire, revealing a surprisingly enlightened approach to gender roles in antiquity. As the light of your ancient Egyptian day slowly begins to fade, casting long, peaceful shadows across the landscape, your thoughts drift to how the echoes of this unique past might resonate in the present. This leads us to a final, contemplative point. While women in modern Egypt have achieved legal rights such as land ownership and voting, the practical realities of their daily lives often still involve strong societal expectations regarding domestic roles, presenting a complex interplay between historical legacy and contemporary challenges. The journey of rights today in Egypt is a continuous evolution, often battling the weight of centuries of social norms. Historians still argue whether the gains made by modern Egyptian women are a direct continuation of ancient freedoms, or if they represent entirely new struggles for equality in a different social context. Here's a quirky tidbit. Imagine trying to explain to an ancient Egyptian woman that, even with the right to vote and own land, many women today still face pressure to prioritize domestic duties over career ambitions. She might scratch her head and wonder, but if you can own property and start a business, why would you limit yourself? It's a bit like having all the tools in the workshop, but being told you should only build birdhouses. You might even hear cynical whispers from the past, remarking on how some things, like societal expectations, seem to change far more slowly than laws. In modern Egypt, legal reforms have granted women significant rights, including the ability to own land, manage their finances, and, critically, to vote and participate in political elections. These are fundamental cornerstones of modern citizenship, reflecting a global movement towards gender equality. The legal framework today strives to ensure equal opportunities for women in various sectors, from education to professional life. However, the challenges often lie in the gap between legal rights and social realities. Many women in modern Egypt, particularly outside major urban centers, still face strong cultural and familial expectations to prioritize marriage, motherhood, and domestic responsibilities. While they can pursue careers, the societal narrative often emphasizes their role within the home, leading to a balancing act that ancient Egyptian women might recognize. Think about the blend of tradition and modernity. You might see a modern Egyptian woman excelling in a demanding profession, yet still expected to manage her household with traditional diligence. often without the household support that elite ancient Egyptian women might have had. It's a dual burden, a push and pull between the opportunities afforded by law and the deep-seated cultural norms. This complex interplay shows that while the legal framework for women in ancient Egypt was remarkably progressive for its time, the social realities and prevailing patriarchal structures, as you recalled, continue to evolve in fascinating ways into the modern era. The fight for full practical equality, where all women can exercise their rights without undue societal pressure, remains an ongoing journey, much like the constant flow of the Nile, shaping lives and destinies. The legacy of ancient Egyptian women, with their impressive freedoms, offers both a reminder of what was achieved in the distant past and a mirror for the aspirations of the present. Word count 1,000 as the last echoes of our journey through ancient Egypt fade. The gentle hum of the fan becomes more prominent, a quiet rhythm accompanying your descent into rest. The images of empowered women, of legal battles won, and of vibrant feasts begin to soften, merging into the comforting quiet of your room. Remember the resilience, the unexpected freedoms, and the unique spirit of the women we met tonight, and let those thoughts drift peacefully as you find your own calm. The sands of time continue to shift, but the stories, like the gentle lapping of the Nile, remain a quiet lullaby inviting sweet slumber, *, sweet dreams.